all of your classmates, peers / friends, whatever, react when they found out you guys are from a royal lineage?
The first thing they wanted to do is see the palace.
Like, do you actually have a palace, or you're just saying you're a princess? Like,
And how
I
was-
never told anyone anything, but they just figured it out.
What used to happen was when I was in my 11th, 12th, my mother never knew how to pack a dabba. She used to send a whole meal for 4 people. And my friends used to enjoy the entire meal.
feast.
They were like, Raji, her dabba has not come. No, the car is on its way, it will come.
Somebody once asked me, like, oh, so then do you like wake up every morning and then you clap, and then some, like, you know how they'll show in a movie that somebody comes with a tray of orange juice, or there's like 3 people waiting to do my wardrobe for the day. It doesn't work like that, guys. I have an alarm on my phone, and that's what wakes me up.
Have you guys ever heard of this movie called Coming to America by Eddie Murphy? Do you guys ever relate to any of that stuff?
I think that sometimes my staff is more entitled than me.
Really?
Yeah, I feel that because sometimes, you know, when I'm traveling to Miraj or something, I'm happy with just a vada pav or something, you know, on the way, just eat it in the car and be done with it. Or just a tea and a vada pav, you know, something.
Yeah.
Or my staff will be like, no, we can't do this, we have to have a full thali.
I was also put into Bhosle military school.
Okay. How was that for you as a
That
royal?
was really nice. I learned so many things. I learned how to wash my own clothes. That was because at home everything was given to you. I would just throw my clothes and they would come back in my closet.
All your co-workers know now that you guys are from a royal lineage?
Some of them do know now, yes. There's also a lot of like, oh, why you doing this job? Like, you don't need to work and get a salary like we do. But like, why not?
Is that true though?
I mean, not necessarily. I should also be
have to keep yourself busy
self-sufficient,
somehow.
right?
You have to do something.
For how long will I just sit and chill?
I think one always feels that there's a sense of entitlement.
Correct.
You know, that royal families have. And I think that is a myth. And
And
that should be busted.
Namaste everyone and welcome to this episode of the Oddcast Show. This Oddcast is very special and royal because we are joined by 3 young members of royal bloodlines who are known as Rajkumari, Isharaje, Rajasaheb, Pandit, Pantsachiv, Rajkumari of Bhor, His Highness Shrimant Malojiraje the Third, Sanyuktaraje Bhosle, Rajasaheb Akkalkot, and His Highness Shrimant Madhavraje Ramraje alias Rajasaheb Patwardhan, Yuvraj of Miraj Senior. Welcome to the show, guys. Hope you all are glad to be here.
Yes.
So, these 3 names are probably as long as most of my essays in school. So, I'm gonna need you to tell me sort of ways of addressing you guys without getting any punishments.
Just call me Malojiraje, that's more than enough.
Okay, and you?
Isharaje.
Madhavraje is good.
Okay, so would each of you please explain where do your bloodlines exactly start from?
It starts back from Brahma. From the Brahma till Shivaji Maharaj, I have a proper lineage. I can show it to you. After Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj came. After Sambhaji Maharaj was Shahu Maharaj. Shahu Maharaj was kept in Aurangzeb's prison. After he was released from there, the first Mohim he took was at Parad. The Lokhande Patils were the Sardars for the Nizam back then. And then on the orders of the Nizam, they attacked Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, and Shahu Maharaj killed all the Lokhande Patils. That is when the Lokhande Patil's wife kept her son in Shahu Maharaj's feet. That is when Shahu Maharaj adopted that son, and since it was his first war in his entire life, and he won the war, that is why he named him Fateh Singh the First.
Wow.
And then after Fateh Singh, he was brought to Satara, and then he was trained and he was raised in Satara. After that, when Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj got the Akkalkot Pargana, that is when he wanted someone very close from the family to go and look after the Akkalkot side. Because see, if you go back in history, back in history, Akkalkot as a Pargana was very, very important for the Maratha Empire.
Why exactly?
That's because all the Mughals, right from Bijapur, Hyderabad, and Aurangabad. If you see the geography, the flatlands are from the Solapur area. If you try to come across from Nagar to Pune or to Satara, because Satara was the main Rajdhani,
Yeah.
and they always wanted to protect Satara because the main clan started from Satara, the Shivaji Maharaj's clan. And since we needed a lot of protection, the Akkalkot Gadi was formed because all the Mughals used to usually attack with their cavalry, and the tofs were very heavy to cross most of the Sahyadri ranges. So Solapur was a very easier path for them to enter Maharashtra, and that is when Akkalkot was one of the biggest. It had the biggest army to support the Maratha Empire.
Awesome. Awesome. I have a lot of
And
questions.
since then, the family has come ahead until me.
Awesome. I have a lot of questions based on what you just said, but I'm going to let her introduce herself as well.
Okay, so my lineage is a little complicated and long, so I'm going to refer to some notes so that I don't get anything wrong. So basically, Shankaraji Narayan Gandekar is the first Pantsachiv. He was Gandekar before. I'll get to the title. So basically, during Sambhaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj's reign, he had a Peshwa in the Darbar called Moropanta Pingre, and he was a part of the Ashtapradhan Mandal of Sambhaji Maharaj. And basically, when the Ashtapradhan Mandal died suddenly, only one of them survived. His name was Ramchandra Panta. So basically, Shankaraji Narayan and Parshuram Panta of Aundh, they got into an alliance with Ramchandra Panta, and they were given. Basically, Ramchandra Panta was entrusted by Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj, who is the second son of Shivaji, to defend his Raj. So at the time, Rajaram Maharaj was in Jinji, Karnataka, and under him, Shankaraji Narayan and Parshuram Panta were defending the Western Ghats, which is the region of Mawar and Konkan. So while this was happening, Shankaraji Narayan actually captured Rajgarh back from the Mughal emperor, and when that happened, because that was a very big deal, like it was
Right.
a very valiant victory. So at that time, Rajaram Maharaj recognized him as Pantsachiv, and Pantsachiv is basically a title which means the pillar of the realm. So
Wow.
basically, like a great ruler. So after that, that's how basically that's where the Pantsachiv lineage starts. This was in 1693 AD. So that was the first Pantsachiv.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, Madhavraje.
So my family actually traces its lineage from 1650, around the same time as Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So I had an ancestor called Harbhatji. He had a full title, Param Pujya Harbhatji Baba Patwardhan, obviously, because he was a saint. So of course our lineage goes back about 10 generations before that, but I'm not very confident of that lineage. But my family basically traces his lineage to Harbhatji. And then he had 7 sons. So basically, because he was a saint, he was doing dhyan one day, and for many years actually he was doing dhyan. And then one day he was blessed by Lord Ganpati, and Lord Ganpati at Purace told him that he should go and marry one lady, daughter of one Mr. Shende, who was also a priest in Konkan. And so he did that. He went to the father of the girl, and apparently he had also had a dream that a person called Harvardji is going to come to you, and he's going to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage.
Wow.
And this is going to do something different.
This was like a divine pairing.
This was like a divine thing that happened. And so he did. And they got married. And they had 7 sons. And my family traces its lineage to the 4th of those sons. Now, each of those sons, you can say, set up their own kingdom of sorts. But my family traces its lineage from the 4th one, called Govindhari. And he got the Saranjam of Miraj. And then the family, the Patwardhans of Miraj begin. The story of the Patwardhans of Miraj begins.
So you said that your lineage has started from Lord Brahma technically.
Yes.
Do both of your bloodlines also start from a god in a certain way, or is that
Not exactly, no.
okay? So just to go a little bit more about yourselves, I know how to address you now. How do the people in your village or your kingdom address you?
They just call us Raje.
Yeah.
Just Raje directly.
Yeah.
And you?
Same thing. Isharaje.
And how do they address your parents?
They used to call my mother also Raje. See, Akkalkot always, the title as Rajasaheb of Akkalkot was given to Akkalkot. And I believe that Swami Samarth Maharaj is already there in Akkalkot. So there is no one who can be called Maharaj after a god.
Right.
So then I also call myself as Raja in Akkalkot.
Right. Does that also kind of make you feel a little humbled with your whole
No,
position?
but that was actually, see, that was the title given to the family. So I'm not changing the title. If I would have called myself as Maharaj, then I would be changing the title.
Right. One question I have based on how it works in the whole hierarchy of kingdoms is inheritance. How does the inheritance system really work? Is it, for example, if there are twins born and one of them is a male, one is a female, how does it work?
See, in the olden days, it was always the male who got the first preference because the female who was born would get married into some another family. That is how it was. But then after which year did this law come into?
Well, the gender equality legislations came in, I think, about 2005 is when women were allowed to inherit in the same way as men. But the real law that I would say changed everything would be when privy purses were abolished in 72. Because before that, it was the merger agreements that decided your succession rights. And that said only the eldest male would inherit everything.
Right.
So,
right.
but after that, then even second sons and third sons and as many as there were.
Daughters.
And no, daughters came in 2005 because of the central legislation, right?
Is it done any differently in your bloodline?
Not really. I mean, I feel like now, like, times have changed. So that whole gender bias that because I'm a daughter and I have an older brother, but I think my parents, the inheritance will go equally to both. There's no like gender, there's no gender bias around it.
Are they allowed? They're allowed to choose that based on what they want now in what time.
No, so now we all come under the Indian law.
Yeah.
That
There's-
is how
yeah.
now there is no special law for the royal families. It is we
Very
all
few
come.
things are reserved for the royal family.
So the normal law, from what I understand, is that the father or whoever the owner of the property is can decide whether or not to give it to the children or what part of the property to give for what. Is that the same for the palaces or is it different?
No, that see if your father or the generation above us, if they have bought the property or they have built it on their own, then they have all the freedom to give it to anyone.
Yeah.
But if they have inherited it from the ancestors, then they have to give it to equally divided between the family.
In some special situations, one can say that if there are trusts involved or if there are religious entities involved, then sometimes the regular laws get bypassed and special laws apply. Or if it was like a special trust that was created during the era of the states, then those still are reserved and it continues as per that tradition.
Okay, and what is the scene with your normal lives? Like, what do you guys do now?
So now I have just recently in 2020 I moved to Akkalkot and I have started looking after a lot of family things in Akkalkot as well as
Such as? Like
so-
property?
palaces, and I'm coming up with a project called Anubhuti. Again, I'm getting into the infrastructure of Akkalkot. I want Akkalkot to be a city in the next 10 years. So I'm working really hard to get it onto that level. It'll take time because good things always take time.
Right.
And progress is always very slow.
Yeah, of course. And you?
What do I do now? I actually work as a graphic designer in an interior design firm. I have a very normal life.
Okay.
Even growing up, I had a very normal life. So I studied to be a photographer, but now I've ended up working as a graphic designer.
Did you want to do that as a kid with all your upbringing as a?
So actually for me, my upbringing was fairly normal. Like my parents didn't ever let me feel like, oh, you come from somewhere special. Like he was saying, my name in school was Isha Pantsachiv. I was never Isharaje. I didn't know that, okay, this is where I come from or this is who I am until I was like a teenager to actually understand that, okay, this means something. Or when I'm going to Bhor to this palace, this is a palace. It's not just a big house that
Yeah.
we have. So, yeah.
Okay, over to you.
So I did my law from Pune, and I've done my master's in law as well. And I was previously working with a lawyer in Pune. And yeah, I mean, I hoped to become a lawyer, but now let's see. I mean, we don't know what will happen in the future.
Okay.
I've had to spend some time in Miraj to look after things. So,
Mhm.
so like Isharaje said, when I was in school, obviously, I mean, the whole point of going to school in Pune was so that one has a normal life. Because like even in my grandfather's time, he was brought to Pune after age 10 because in Miraj, he was not having a normal life. He was homeschooled because he
Right.
couldn't go to school in Miraj. So
Right.
that's why he came to Pune. So after that, the family settled in Pune only because the states were no longer there with us. They were with the government of India. So that's why we moved to Pune, and that's the purpose of going to school in Pune was to have a normal life and to try and assimilate
We had to
in
be normal.
society.
It's 20
And
to 20.
you know,
Just to get you all accustomed to like modern day
get us-
values and stuff.
yeah.
To understand things better if we ever go back to our hometowns.
But how was your upbringing outside of school? Like, was it any different from the other kids?
Yes, for me it was a little different.
How so?
Because I was raised by my mother who was way older than me. We had a generation gap. When she was 55, I was just 12 years old.
Oh,
So
okay.
we had a generation gap. So she came up with a very old ideologies of living life. So they wanted me to learn archery. They wanted me to learn shooting. They
Somehow
wanted
what
me to
people
learn
would call
horse
orthodox these
riding.
days.
Ji?
Somehow what people would call orthodox these days in a way.
No, I won't call
Because-
them orthodox, but those skills are supposed to be learned at a certain age, which make you a little tough. Then I was also put into Bhosle military school.
Okay. How was that for you as a
That
royal?
was really nice. I learned so many things. I learned how to wash my own clothes. That was because at home everything was given to you.
Yeah.
I would just throw my clothes, and they would come back in my closet. That is how things were.
I mean, I
And
think
then-
there is a little bit of a privilege, I guess, to be.
Was that the same for you?
Yeah, I think the customs and traditions at home were slightly different to the customs and traditions at other people's houses because, I mean, I suppose we would follow it more rigorously
Correct.
as compared to others. Like every single ritual or every single festival would be celebrated either at home or in Miraj or in a public way. And
right.
one would have to attend that. So in that sense, definitely life was different.
How did all of your classmates, peers / friends, whatever, react when they found out you guys are from a royal lineage? Did they ever even know that?
they got to know eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
And then the first thing they wanted to do is see the palace.
Like, do you actually have a palace, or you're just saying you're a princess? Like,
And how
I
was-
never told anyone anything, but they just figured it out.
how come? Like from your own
From school, I mean, because in school I went to Bishop's and there we had a trophy which my grandmother would give, and they would call her, and and then they would know who I am because she would call me and ask me to sit next to her, and then it would.
was that embarrassing?
It was slightly embarrassing, but I couldn't deny my grandmother. I mean, there was no question of ever denying her.
And then, especially when the protocols come into place, that's when things get a little difficult.
Yeah.
what kind of protocol?
So what happens is, if you are attending a function as a royalty, you have to be sitting on the stage.
Do you have to have like a certain dress code or something?
Dress code, you just have to be normally dressed. We can't have ripped jeans and
Yeah, of course.
all of those
But
things.
it's more lenient than
Yeah,
over here.
yeah.
Okay, and for you?
Slightly formal, slightly more formal. Like, I can't roam around just anyhow. I mean, in Pune, maybe yes, but certain places there has to be a balance, obviously.
Do all your co-workers know now that you guys are from a royal lineage?
Some of them do know now, yes.
How did they react versus how your friends and stuff reacted?
It's a little bit of a shocker because I feel like I come across as very normal. So when they hear that, suddenly the perspective changes, like, oh, okay, maybe they need to treat me differently now. So it's a little awkward. I try to avoid telling a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I think one always feels that there's a sense of entitlement.
correct.
That royal families have. And I think that is a myth. And that
then-
should be busted.
Yeah, there's also a lot of like, oh, why you doing this job? Like, you don't need to work and get a salary like we do. but like why not?
Is that true though?
I mean, not necessarily. I should also be
You have to keep yourself busy
self-sufficient,
somehow.
Yeah,
right?
you have to do something.
For how long will I just sit and chill?
Right, makes sense. And how was the scene with getting jobs? Were you treated differently then by any chance, or
Initially, nobody knows my background, right?
Right.
Like I said, legally, I'm only Isha Pantsachiv. So it's the surname sounds unique, yes, but then they'll just be like, oh, maybe like I come from somewhere else, but that's about it. Once I'm there and then they find out, then maybe there's a little bit of a difference. But to get the job, no, I've never used that in any way.
okay? You all gave some hints about myths. So each of you, please tell us how many of our myths have been formed about you, generally or specifically, and what are you going to do to bust them? Anyone can.
There are a lot of myths that take place when you are in a small village. People come up with their own ideas. People have their own ideologies to the way how you live your life. But if you see, we have a very, very busy life. If you go back to, when I go back to Akkalkot, it's a completely packed life I have. But then when people look at you, they always think ki, this guy mustn't be doing anything, or they have very weird ideas of how you live your life. And I'm not very comfortable sharing it on the screen, but people talk a lot. And initially I used to be very, very bothered with all of these things.
Right.
But then I asked a few other royal families, like, how do you deal with these problems? They said either you just ignore or you just enjoy. Those are the two options you have.
Is there something you're specifically about you that you're ignoring or enjoying right now?
I'm always enjoying.
Okay.
Since then, I started enjoying. You come up with a myth and I'll start enjoying it. Because it's surprising for you also, right?
Yeah.
When you don't know something about yourself.
And then someone else comes and tells you something like,
Then it's more fun.
Right,
And you
right.
don't, acha,
Yeah,
ये भी है. Is this also happened?
I think that's very true. I think it's
Yeah.
very good to just embrace whatever other people say about you, because you know what? I mean, and if they don't know you and they're saying things, then good for them. I mean, what can we say?
And
Let them.
and how about you? Any myths about you from your local folklore?
No, not specifically, I wouldn't say.
Anything generally you've come across in somebody, like once your classmates or your co-workers found out that you're from a royal lineage, and then they came and said something about you, or you've heard about it
I mean,
as a rumor?
a lot of people assume a lot of stupid, funny things also, right? Like, for example, somebody once asked me like, oh, so then do you like wake up every morning and then you clap and then like, you know how they'll show in a movie that somebody comes with a tray of orange juice, or there's like 3 people waiting to do my wardrobe for the day. It doesn't work like that, guys. I have an alarm on my phone and that's what wakes me up.
Have you guys ever heard of this movie called Coming to America by Eddie Murphy? Do you guys ever relate to any of that stuff? Even the second part of the movie where he comes to
I haven't watched the
The
movie.
second part.
so just to give you some context, Eddie Murphy is the actor in the movie, and he's a prince in I forgot which country, but he grows up and he becomes fed up of all the luxuries and all. Like everybody's walking, people are putting petals everywhere, and he's just fed up of it. And he tells his dad at the age of 21 that I want to go to America for some reason. I don't know why. He chooses Queens in New York, which is one of the worst neighborhoods there, to find a wife for himself. And then he goes there, and then he realizes how bad it is, and he becomes a sweeper in this rip-off version of McDonald's called McDowell's. And they've shown his journey from there, which is a very satirical one, but they've shown that he wants to live a normal life and he wants to embrace the struggles of a normal life. Did you guys ever find yourself in that position anytime?
Well, I would say that that in that movie, there's that that clip, you can say, where his person with him acts more entitled than he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he goes and gets some bathtub and puts it in the building and all that. You know, I think that sometimes my staff is more entitled than me.
Really?
Yeah, I feel that. Because sometimes, you know, when I'm traveling to Miraj or something, I'm happy with just a vada pav or something. You know, on the way, just eat it in the car and be done with it. Or just a tea and a vada pav. You know, have something.
Yeah.
Or my staff will be like, no, we can't do this. We have to have a full thali. Or one thing comes to mind. I had gone to Madhya Pradesh to do some legal aid work, and I was not allowed to go alone because of the protocols and things and all those kind of things. So my grandfather had sent a person with me, and I was basically, it was like a hostel kind of a situation to stay there. And I had not disclosed that at home. I had said that I'm going to go and stay in the government guest house. Otherwise, I would not be allowed to get my legal aid experience. And I really wanted to get it because it was something fun, interesting, something that I enjoy. So I went there, and it was a hostel kind of experience for me. And first time I was living in a hostel kind of a thing. And, I was fine. But my dude who came with me, he was like, I can't stay here. How can I do this? These bathrooms are so horrible. And I was not saying anything about the bathrooms or anything about the, the living conditions.
But that's surprising because you're like the... right. Can you guys relate to any of what he said?
Yes, 100%.
It's the same with you guys?
See, because when you are something, you cannot enjoy those privileges than what the other person can enjoy. For example, now if you see most of the ministers and all of these people, their families and their secretaries enjoy more than the ministers.
Right.
All the perks and
right. Makes
being
sense.
in power.
Did you guys ever feel any kind of burden of responsibility on your shoulders anytime while growing up? Were you ever told that you have to grow up and be so and so person?
We had a lot of restrictions when we were growing up, which the normal people, like my friends, didn't have.
Like what?
Like I was supposed to be home at 6 after sunset. I was not allowed to go out of the house.
That early?
That early. So
I
all
still
those
live
restrictions.
like that.
Then I was not supposed to eat anywhere outside. I had to come home and eat.
You never eat any outside food?
Not until the pocket money started.
When did that start?
That started after 12th.
That late?
Yes. Until then, my dabbas used to come in whichever college I was.
And how did your friends react to these restrictions?
They used to enjoy it.
They used to.
Because so what used to happen was when I was in my 11th, 12th, my mother never knew how to pack a dabba because I was always in a day boarding school.
Right.
And then when I was in the 11th, I came into a normal college. And lunchtime, the dabba had to be sent. My mother had no idea how the dabba is prepared. She used to send a whole meal for 4 people. And my friends used to enjoy the entire meal.
Feast.
They were like, Raji, her dabba has not come. No, the car is on its way, it will come. And then we all used to come, all used to go and feast. And when you are studying in Pune now, you have a lot of people who have come from outside Pune to come and to study. So those people used to enjoy all the food that used to come from home.
Cooked food.
Home cooked food, and it used to be hot.
Yeah.
And it used to be a spread menu. And we used to put all the menu in the car, and then I used to sit in the car, have my meal, and then go back to college.
Can you guys relate to any of the restrictions he had?
Yeah, I think I never really interacted with people properly, until I was like 18 or 20.
How did that affect you when you turned 18 and 20 and you started interacting and then you're like...
Oh, it was very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how to interact. So, I mean, I only knew how to interact with my cousins or like very close family friends or, that's about it. I didn't know how to interact with like...
And usually what
people.
happens in these families is before the person reaches you, there are these 4 steps of people who they have to cross. So by the time they come to
like
you,
security kind of or like...
See, with me, I'll tell you how it was. It was my secretary who would, if someone had to approach and have a conversation with me, it would be my secretary they will talk to first. And then it will come to my mother. Then it would go to my aunt. And if he passes all these 3 steps, then he would come to me.
Like
So,
even your friend.
yeah, even with my friends. Friends, not really, but a new person who I didn't know,
Right.
who was not related to me in any way.
And like what kind of interactions would they have with those 3 people?
They would come with some project or some new theory they wanted me to be a part of, basically.
No, what interactions do they have with the 3 people who they have to cross?
Whatever they have come for. And if they cross these 3 people, only then would I meet that person. And so what used to happen is I used to only end up meeting smart people or intellectual people. So when I got out into the open world, I never knew the people were...
It was like you were always filtered out.
Also, like,
People are also difficult to understand.
How did you deal with that?
I initially started laughing over everything because it was so funny for me. Everything was so funny that I started laughing, and then eventually And the people used to get awkward because they wouldn't understand why I was laughing.
Why were you laughing?
And then slowly I got used to all the madness that is around you. And then now I've grown up to it. Like,
Do you guys also have like layers of people like that?
No, my life wasn't that restricted, but I had restrictions like even when I was in college, I was like, I had a driver take me there, bring me back home. What time am I coming home? Who is sitting in the car? Who is this new person? Why have we never heard of him or her before? Like those kinds of restrictions. So, but yeah, not that.
but our
extreme.
friends were also interviewed by my
Yeah,
mother.
a
All
lot
my
of background
friends.
checks all the
Yeah.
time.
All my friends were interviewed by my mother. They would ask what the father is, what
Yeah.
does he do,
What does the father do?
and then
Right.
my mother would tell me ki be friends with this person, don't be friends with this person. And then
I mean, that's the case with basically any household
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
and how did you guys react when you found out that that this is the palace that I'm basically I don't know what word to use. I'm going to inherit or whatever, but I'm living in so and so house in so and so city where people may not even know who I am.
for me, it was very difficult because my family never went to Akkalkot for almost 40 years. I went
Wow.
to Akkalkot. I'm the first generation to go back to Akkalkot after independence.
Is there a certain reason for that?
Because, see, before independence, the king used to look after the entire administration of a particular town or his area. So, after the merger was done, the king had nothing to do. So, all of these princely states moved to a big city. And then the next generation was born into the cities. So, they never felt the need to go back to those villages. And now, our generation, I think most of us have gone back to our respective villages. So, it is a very tough it was a very tough situation initially when I moved to Akkalkot because for the town to accept that someone has come after almost 40-50 years, it was the town held back.
That to
Before-
kind of like a stranger they've never seen before,
Yes,
but
yes.
of a so and so.
They had just heard of me, and they'd never seen me also. So they just knew that this name is there, but they didn't know the face behind the name or the person behind the name.
How did you sort of warm up to them and make them understand?
I started with a lot of religious activities, and Akkalkot has a lot of old traditions. I guess all the royal families have a lot of old traditions. So when I started interacting, the way I started interacting was I restarted all those old traditions. Like we have the Dasara, which is very big. Then we have Ganpati. I think most of the families have.
That must be very important for you as well.
It is very important. It's our most important 5 days of the year.
Is it because of that vision the saint had?
Yes, it is because it's sort of because of that. I mean, because of that, all Patwardhan states, so there are about 6 or 7 princely Patwardhan families. All of them have Ganpati in a very big way, and I think Sangli is the most popular one, but Miraj is the original one. So,
And how about you?
We have a very big Ram Navami, which is basically we celebrate Janma of Lord Ram. So there's a huge procession in the village, and it's a very big thing that happens every year, even now.
And usually what happens is when these festive times are there in all the small villages, all the people who are working in the cities also come back to their villages.
Wow.
And so it becomes easier to have a big function at that particular time because then a lot
Everyone's
of people,
there.
everyone's together.
And when you were growing up, were you all ever educated based on the history of your own lineages, or did you all have to just read about them through your own curiosity?
No, see, as in school, I learned about Napoleon and Julius Caesar and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I never knew my own history. And that is when I moved back to Akkalkot, that's when I realized that I need to know my history also. And I was always very curious about history. Then I started getting a lot of notes, and I'm still getting to know my family again. To be really honest.
Are you using your own sources, or are you using just Google and stuff?
No, we have our own sources. We have these old documents. I'm just going through all the documents and getting to know myself and my family more every single day.
How about you guys?
no.
For me, actually, in our palace of Bhor, a part of the palace was burnt. and that was the part that had all most of the documentation of all
Was
our
that in like a
lineage.
war or was
Not in a war, just like a accident in the
Okay.
house. So a lot of our history has been burned down.
Oh.
So we rely mostly on a lot of stories that have been passed down by our ancestors, and there are a few books obviously that are remaining. So for me, mostly a lot of stories that have come from my grandfather and my father would be where I've learned a lot.
How about you?
I think the history of the Patwardhans is in like 13 or 14 volumes written by one fellow called Vasudev Shastri Khare. Unfortunately, I have not read it because it's in old Marathi and it has a lot of Modi manuscripts, which again I have not studied, so I can't read. But I have read Patwardhan history in other books which are written by authors today, or older books which were published in the 1900s, which were written in English, and one or two in Marathi as well. And I think building on what Isharaje said, stories is a very good way. I mean, I remember initially I would go to my grandfather and I would ask him, tell me some stories. You know, when I was 5 or 6, I would go to my grandfather and ask him, tell me some stories of Miraj. Or I would go to my grandmother and ask, tell me, some story.
It's like a fun bonding
Yeah.
experience with your family, I think, for all of us.
Do you guys still look forward to stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to like hang out and hear things that are still new to us even
Now when you
Yeah.
move around the town, you'll have a lot of these senior people coming and telling you a lot of stories.
Yeah.
You'll hear
But then-
about your family from others who live in your respective villages as well.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Speaking of history, what are your thoughts on the kind of history that you guys are taught in modern schools now? Because I'm pretty sure you guys were brought up reading
See, in
that
modern
history first.
schools, we never studied history of our own families. Unfortunately, I studied in CBSE.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you never.
So I never studied up
I
anything
mean, I did
about-
ICSE, so I can kind of feel your pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
So I did actually read Shankaraji Narayan, who I was talking about, the first Pantsachiv, his name in my history textbook. And when I saw it in the 5th standard, I was like, wait, I know this name. And I went to my father and I was like, is this the same person? Like, does this mean we're important? So, that was like,
was that like a revelation?
yeah, it was like the start of the realization that, okay, there is some lineage and there's history and we're a royal family kind of.
With all these restrictions around you guys while growing up, did you ever look at any, not just a friend, but even like a common person be like, I wish I was normal like that.
Sometimes, no?
And I wasn't
No?
the
You didn't think
person
so?
who I am.
Sometimes you feel so.
Sometimes, yeah.
How do you
It would-
feel now versus back then?
No, now I'm happy where I am. Like, I feel like I have the best of both worlds. It's like a good balance. Because when I'm here, I can also be normal, but there is still also this in the background. So it's
How about
a
you
good
guys?
place.
I
to
thought I
be.
moved back
Yeah.
to Akkalkot, so I have
Yeah.
to live up to my legacy there.
Right.
So now the normal life is done for me.
Okay.
I think it's better just to accept where you are in life and to take it from there. I mean, there's no point in hoping or wishing. The grass is always greener on the other side. So what's
sure.
the point?
For sure. How do you like that? Do you enjoy that more, or do you look forward to kind of coming to
So
the
I
city
have
as well?
kept a balance of both. So when I'm in Akkalkot, I roam around as who I am. And when I'm in Pune, I usually don't disclose my identity. But now the social media has become a big problem. People now know how you look.
Yeah.
Because before social media came into existence, it was easy to hide even when you are in a crowded place.
For sure.
But now it becomes a little difficult.
Are you guys religious also?
Yeah.
Is that by choice or by legacy?
No, for me, it was a very drastic change. I wasn't completely an atheist person. I never went to any temples. I hardly used to visit any temples also.
Are you religious?
Yeah, I think I was born
And
religious.
then when I moved to Akkalkot, and my people around me used to always tell me, ki, this Swami Samarth Maharaj who has a very different attention towards the family. So why don't you make complete good use of it? I was like, this is nothing. This is all stories that people have been telling and listening
And
to
you were
for
how old
over
back then?
generations. This is 2020, so
Oh, so
I was
recently?
27 years old.
Recently, okay.
Recently. And then I got a lot of these experiences staying in Akkalkot. That is what changed my entire behavior and my approach towards looking at what spirituality is. changed.
What kind of experience? Can you share one or two if you're comfortable?
So what happened was when I was in Akkalkot, I never used to go to the temple. I used to, and people who used to come to the Akkalkot temple, I used to ask them, why do you come in this heat and so far off? There's nothing special.
What do you get out of it?
What do you get out of it? So people used to tell me, Rajay, you are blessed to be staying in Akkalkot. You should go to the temple every day. I said, I am not
Do you
going to
do
the
that
temple.
now?
Now I go when I feel like, but then what happened after? There's a function that takes place in Akkalkot on there's Punyatiti, Swami Samarth's Punyatiti. So there is only one Abhishek done by the royal family, and also there's a Mahanevedya of Panch Pakwan for the entire town, whoever comes at that particular time. So I had to go for the darshan, and I was in Akkalkot, and I happened to go for the darshan, and a lot of things changed. Like my work, which was stuck for a year, got done in like 15 days. And my secretary came and he told me, Rajesh, see, I was telling you ki Swami Samarth Maharaj has a lot of specialized attention towards the royal family, and you should completely make use of it. I said, Devanji, this is nothing. This is all my all the hard work that is paying off right now. But then he took me again to the temple. There was so on Thursdays we have a beautiful aarti in Akkalkot, and when I went for that aarti, when I came back home, again a few things changed. Then I realized that this is not something that is normal. That is when I started going to the temple more often to see if things change, and things started changing, and things started changing in such a way that now I have surrendered myself to Swami Samarth Maharaj, and he takes up. He has another plan for me, so I'm just following whatever he asks me to do.
Awesome. How about you?
I feel like still on a journey. I don't know if I'm very religious yet. And luckily for me, in my family, even though we have all this lineage and all that, everyone is allowed to have their spiritual opinion. Like it's okay to be atheist, kind of. So I'm still finding myself, but I feel like as I'm getting older, like he's saying, more things are happening around me that don't have a logical explanation. Like, for example, we all, along with Ramnavami, we also have a Navratri celebration in Bhor. So it's not as big, like not on a big scale, it's within the family. But for 9 days of Navratri, we have a lot of pujas and aartis, and we do a lot of things. So my father used to always tell us that there's a big home that happens, which is basically like, like a havan. So we purify the entire place with holy smoke.
Right.
So he always used to say ki you have to attend this no matter what happens, because it cleanses you and you get a new start. And actually feels like that now. So slowly getting in that direction, I would say.
And how about you?
Yeah, so I had a similar, I had an experience like that recently, about 2 years ago during our Ganpati festival. Every day I would go to Ganpati and take care of the aarti, in the temple. And I had one request at that time, which I made to him, and I said, if you complete this request, then I'm going to come and say thank you.
Like to God.
To God.
Navas.
Yeah.
Navas.
Yeah, I asked him for a certain thing. And I said, if you complete this request, I'm going to come and meet you in Ganpatipure. So then Ganpati happened, and I think the Utsav was in September. By December, I got whatever I wanted. And then I decided that I have to complete my side of the obligation. So I went to Ganpatipure and I said, thank you for giving me what I asked for. And then I came back, and then within a month, I got even more than what I had asked for.
Really?
Yeah. And then I said, there is a power.
But had that not happened, had he not fulfilled your wish, do you think you would be an
Yeah.
atheist?
I mean, had he not fulfilled my wish?
The first time.
Well, yeah, because I suppose you have to always ask, if you ask for something that you don't know the consequences of, then what's the point? I mean, you could ask for something and you may actually get it, and if you get it, then it may be even worse than what he's actually wanting
sure.
to give you.
For sure.
It's always safer to ask, saying that, I hope that this happens, but then you take care of it, because I don't know what the future is or whatever
in my
path
experience,
is.
I would say ki you go to any temple which you believe in, you always get what you need and not what you
Not
ask
what you
for.
want.
But what you need and what you want, that definition differs a lot from most people.
Yes. So basically, see, I believe in a lot of manifestation.
Okay.
Because Swami Samarth Maharaj I feel is a god of manifestation. And whatever I've manifested or wanted for Akkalkot, he has always...
So just for this, just for the sake of some context, Swami Samarth Maharaj is very popular in Maharashtra and especially in Pune also. Wherever I go, I see him at the back of many cars as a sticker.
Yes.
But if I may ask, who is he an avatar of a certain god?
He is an avatar of Dattatreya.
Okay, the three.
Yes,
the Guru.
Guru, Datta Maharaj. And he is basically, he has done a lot for Akkalkot, and he has shown a lot of miracles also. He is one of the few gods who has made a dead man alive.
Really?
Yes.
Like recently or like?
No, when he was there. Not now.
Yeah.
A dead man alive.
Yeah.
Wow.
But do you guys seriously believe this kind of folklore?
Yeah.
See, if it was at the time of Ramayana and Mahabharata, which has become into mythology, then I would not really believe. But now, see, I believe these saints and these avatars are from the new era, or what I would say is, in today's generation, people believe in what they have seen. And there are original photos of Swami Samarth Maharaj. So people do believe in all of these things. And especially the current generation, they only believe in what they see. And that is why I call him the god of the today's generation.
Right.
Yeah.
There's proof.
There's proof.
Do you guys also possess very skeptical minds based on your entire generation stories of what you'll hear?
You can't, I mean, like he said, you believe what you see. So you can't believe everything that you hear, right?
See, for example, I'll just give you a small example. Your grandfather or your father used to believe in Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Ganpati, all these gods. But now, as an individual, you would rather believe in what you see than what you have heard of.
Exactly.
Because of the
But sometimes
the
there
current
is also
generation.
like powers.
Yes,
that comes
then
with
you
these
need experiences like what Madhavraje has had.
Or like what he said is also still extreme. But like, for example, at Ramnavami every year, in our Vada, there are more than 1,000 people chanting the same thing, that's Jai Shri Ram basically.
So the vibrations
and the
must be-
vibrations and the power that you feel, like maybe about 3-4 years ago, I don't know, every year when I'm over there and that Janma happens at 12 p.m, I get teary eyed, and there's no explanation for that. And I'm not a very spiritual person, but that energy and that vibe that you
Vibration.
feel.
Is it like a kind of joy you can't express without?
It's joy. It's like everyone has one hope, one belief, kind of a feeling. So I feel like empowering to be there in that moment.
Right.
Because everyone, no matter where they come from, what their status is, they're rich or poor, everyone is one for those, whatever, 40 seconds, 1 minute. So that's like a very empowering feeling, I feel.
Right. Can you relate to any of this?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that's one of the whole points of having these kind of religious events, is because it connects you to everyone, because we're all linked, right? We're all part of the same being. So I think that's the whole point of having these religious things, to get society together, to make it a cohesive society.
See, and also what I believe in is today's generation, what has happened is most of the things that we have been doing as customs, they always had a practical approach towards it.
Yeah.
But now in today, what has happened is we don't understand the practical approach towards it, but we do it as a duty or because we are told to do. But if you go behind any festival,
Yeah.
there is a story behind it and why it's been done. So, and it is very, very interesting, those stories. If you
Yeah, for
listen
sure.
to you must have heard most of the
Yeah,
stories of why Gudi Padwa is celebrated, why Ganesh Chaturthi is celebrated. So, if you understand the gist of why it's been done, then you can.
Yeah, the
and
minute
law-
is not an obligation,
Yes.
I feel it's
It
more
when
becomes way more interesting.
yeah, way
Yeah.
more interesting, enjoyable. You get what you're supposed to get out of it, I feel.
And one more point I wanted to add was that the whole concept that we have in cities of a class divide and a caste divide that we have in rural areas. When you celebrate these festivals together, this entire concept of class and caste divide completely disintegrates, because each caste has its own role, and a role that is not a one of subservience or supremacy, but one of equality. And as far as classes are concerned, that also has no place in these religious festivals and events.
There's one common thing that is sort of causing a lot of controversy in India now, and that is the caste system that is being carried from. I don't know. I don't really know what the origin and the truth is, but they say that it is one of the worst things that India's given. That's what I've read on the internet. I'm just on my own thought. What are your thoughts on this? Have you all ever noticed something like that?
See, caste, religion, and most of these things were created by the Britishers to understand what exactly
The
happens.
divisions, yeah.
the
Yeah.
divisions. It was not originally
An Indian thing.
This caste is better than this, or this person is better than that. That religion is better than this. Everyone had their own belief systems.
Wasn't it also around occupations?
Yeah,
And
I
also,
was
yeah,
just
and
going
it
to
was
say.
also around occupations.
Yeah.
But then the Britishers wanted to understand ki what is what, and that is when they started classifying ki who is above and who is below, and that is how the entire caste system has been messed up for us.
Right. And speaking of generational differences, have you all ever experienced any kind of discrimination or anything in cities and in your kingdoms that some elderly people have come and said, "Arey, you are like this now. In my time, we used to be like this," or something like that.
Definitely.
Yes. People
Definitely.
people refer to you, and basically the older generation refers to you as, because they have seen what my ancestors were. And then they would give me references, when your grandfather who used to come, these things used to happen, and this is how the protocols used to be. But now what I feel is those protocols in that era were very practical. But today, to follow most of the protocols is
Not
not
possible.
Yeah.
not
Not
practical,
realistic.
nor is possible in today's world. Like, for example, when we used to travel abroad, like all the royal families used to travel abroad, they used to travel with their staff. That's if there were 5 family members, they used to have a staff of 20 people who would
20,
travel.
yeah.
But today, it's not practical to travel with 20 people with you.
Do you guys have a convoy that goes around with you in the country? Just India?
No, not anymore. Not any longer.
Unless you are into politics, then yes.
Yeah, you don't really need a convoy.
I don't think anyone is going to abduct us anymore because we are royal. I think that has passed. So.
I remember Malojiraje and we had a conversation regarding the importance of eating in silver utensils. And even in our family, we used to eat out of silver utensils. But then somewhere down the line, I think we just stopped because it was a very difficult task. But he was telling me about the importance. And the real reason of eating in silver utensils was actually because if you put a poison on a silver plate,
It
it
reacts
changes
very
color.
fast.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And that is why I also told him to
Yeah.
start eating in a silver plate.
Because most people use silver spoon as a sort of metaphor to say that this guy is a rich kid and he's very
Yeah.
privileged, and that he's brought up in a certain way, and he may
Yeah.
not react the same way when he gets injured in a
That is why you
sport.
see people used to eat in silver and not in gold.
Yeah.
Because silver is a very highly reactive metal.
It's shown in a very different narrative in movies though. I mean, it's mostly shown in gold because of all the riches and everything.
That would be one of the taboos, like you were saying,
Yeah,
so
that's
to say that, you eating out of silver plate means
That you're privileged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just had a question for you. What was your image of your palace when you were growing up? Because you said you hadn't gone to Akkalkot for a while.
So basically I got adopted in the palace itself. So
Okay.
I had seen the palace how it was when I got adopted.
Yeah.
So it was not a very shocking thing for me to see the palace. But what was shocking for me was to go to the palace after a lot of time, That is, I got adopted in 2005 and I moved to Akkalkot in 2020. So there was a huge gap between the time I first enjoyed in the palace and then when I went back to work in the palace. So it was very challenging because nothing was looked after properly. Now I have gotten everything in a very, very proper and a prime way.
So coming back to the palaces part, can you all just give me some context as to what exactly does a palace look like? Is it really like how the movies show it, or is it any different?
The Akkalkot Palace is very, very beautiful. So it was built by Fateh Singh Maharaj III. He was the first Indian general to fight in the British Army. So most of his life was on the ship. So he's built the palace just like a ship.
Wow.
So it has a lot of these decks, which are terraces now. And in the museum, and what he's done is he's come up with a museum in the palace, which is the biggest one-man armory collection in Asia. And after that, after Fateh Singh Maharaj, every generation started collecting things because they also
Felt it as their own.
felt like they should also have some collections. So all the generations after that have some of the other collections. Now what I am coming up with is I'm coming up with a museum which has all the collections that the family has collected over generations also. And with Akkalkot, what happened? Usually families expand, as in father will have two sons, and
Yeah.
two sons will have another two sons. But unfortunately, and that is how the properties get divided. But unfortunately, with the Akkalkot family, everything came down to one person. So that is how now I have 4 palaces under one king.
Oh,
That is, some people find it very fortunate enough. Okay, one person has four palaces.
Whoa.
But for me, I feel it's a big responsibility
Yeah.
to have 4 palaces. So what I'm doing now is I'm converting 2 of the palaces into a heritage property. But that is what the Rajasthan people have done. One I'm making as my own residence. And the old palace I'm converting into a proper complete museum. That is
can
what I'm
you
doing.
tell us a little bit more about the museum?
So since Fateh Singh Maharaj was the first Indian general to be in the British Army in the World War One. So when he came back, he got most of the weapons that he fought with and made a beautiful collection in different shapes. Like we have a rising sun, a setting sun, a butterfly. It's all done in swords.
Wow.
In swords.
In swords.
That's
Then we have 20 feet tall guns.
20 feet tall guns.
20 feet tall guns. Then we also have submersible machine guns. Then
Wow.
have you seen Have you guys watched Mangal Pandey?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
those Thasacha Banduki, that's called. Those
Wow.
also we have. We have a lot of collection. It's the biggest in Asia. So one unique thing about the museum is we have in the Mahabharata, you must have seen those arrows
Yeah.
with a lot of, which has a sun,
Yes.
which has a moon,
Yes.
which has a star.
Representing different
Representing,
elements.
yeah. Akkalkot Museum is the only place that I know of has all of those chakras, all of the points of this arrow at the
That
palace
represent them.
that are there in the palace right now.
That's crazy. I have never heard of this before,
Yeah.
like actually still being around. But
Yeah.
it's and how about you guys? What are your palaces like?
Bhor Palace is also very beautiful, has huge courtyards. Actually, you might have seen the Bhor Palace in quite a few movies. If y'all watch Marathi movies, it's in a bunch of Marathi movies like Katyar Kazad Bhusli. Recent movie called Fulvanti, fully shot in Bhor. A lot of y'all must have watched Bajirao Mastani.
Yeah.
So parts of Bajirao Mastani has been shot in Bhor Palace.
Wow.
So yeah, very, very beautiful. And we are also, our collection is not as big as Malojiraje, but we are also trying to come up with a small museum that showcases some of the artifacts that we have left behind.
Mm-hmm. And how about you?
So our main palace in Miraj was built in 1942, about 6-7 years before the states merged. So it was built with the concept that the states will merge. So it was built much smaller. But our original palace, which was in the fort, Miraj Fort, that was a grand palace. The entire Miraj Fort itself was the palace.
Right.
But then later on, of course, we moved out of the fort area because that became very congested. And then we came to our this palace. But before this palace was built, it was a huge 7-storied palace. But our palace is absolutely private, and we don't allow people in unless they take an appointment to meet.
And apart from renting it out to Bollywood films and all, is there anything, and museums as well, is there anything else you guys are doing or can do to monetize or make money out of your palaces?
I'm converting it into heritage property.
Right.
So we'll come up with hotels. And luckily, Akkalkot has a lot of tourism because of Swami Samat Maharaj. So we have religious tourism. Then now that I've moved to Akkalkot and I'm focusing on a lot of Akkalkot and the Maratha history. So a lot of these archaeology people have started coming to Akkalkot. And basically, I'm getting a lot of tourism to Akkalkot.
Do you see it as like a future touristy spot? Because unfortunately, people my age, half of them from like in even any school in India probably wouldn't have heard much of Akkalkot.
Yes.
All they know is Akkalkot, Swami Samat
Maharaj. So that is why I want to get more people to come and see the museum.
But do you think people your age want to actually see palaces and experience that kind of history?
Well, when they hear of it or see it in movies, I'm not quite sure what they'll say because they don't actually know, and even I didn't know for a very long time that they are actually very nuanced and they're not shown in the right way.
Right.
But when they get exposed to a conversation like this, I'm sure why not.
Yeah.
And what else are you all doing for monetizing?
Our main thing is the shootings that we rent it out for films. So that is our biggest way of monetizing it for now.
Okay.
So
And
our palace also in Miraj, there was a movie by one Marathi actor called Subodh Bhave, and he had a movie called Kashinath Ghanekar.
okay.
It was about this actor and his life. So that was shot on the palace grounds. And then there was another TV serial which was also shot on our palace grounds. So that happened, but now we're not very keen on doing that because we're not very comfortable with the shooting thing anymore.
Especially when you're staying there.
Especially when you're staying there, you don't want them on the grounds.
I think it's easier for us because we don't live there.
Yeah.
So we have a portion of the palace that is completely shut off, and only the big courtyards and the big empty areas, like we empty out all our furniture and stuff from there, and those are the only areas that are accessible for the shooting.
Correct.
Only a small part of it.
Right.
And other than that, on our palace grounds, we attached to our grounds, we had a workshop. So kind of a small scale industry. And we also have a hall, a marriage hall kind of thing. We let it out, lawns and hall,
Right.
away from the
Weddings is also
weddings. Is
Sure.
because
I was just
nowadays a
going to ask.
lot of people want royal weddings.
They
and
want that grandeur.
that grandeur. So a small part, like I said, we have this very grand hall. So we rent that out for weddings as well.
Do you guys own any kind of unconventional or exotic animals in your kingdoms?
Oh yeah. See, when you talk about royal families, they have a lot of pets. So in Akkalkot, I have almost 6 dogs.
6 dogs.
6
Are they all
dogs.
of the same breed?
Different breeds, but most of them are Dogo Argentinos because being a big palace and security was compromised, so I needed some aggressive dogs. Then
What
I
about your
have
killer dogs?
then I have some geese. Then I have some turkeys. Then I have goats. I have chickens. And then one man came and he told me, Raju, you have everything but for one thing. That is, you don't have a cow in your palace.
Yeah.
So when I was told to get a cow, so I didn't know where to get it from. So according to the Hindu culture, you don't buy a cow. So it has to be gifted to you. And in today's world, the current world, I didn't know who was going to gift me a cow. So I went around looking for cows, and then I realized that Swami Samarth Maharaj used to have a cow called Kapila. And the Samadhi Mat and the Vaturuksh Mandir, what they've started doing is they have gotten the cow bred with a lot of other cows, and that is how the current generation is the Kapila that I got into the palace. So she's named as Kapila II. She is from the same lineage as Swami Maharaj's Kapila.
Wow.
cow also.
So you completed.
So yeah, and really speaking, when you touch a cow every day, it really calms you down. That is what I have observed
Mhm.
personally.
Right, right.
Looking into the cow's eyes, it's very, very calming, and that's how.
Do you
that's
think
how.
do you think it's kind of cleansing and cathartic for you?
Yes, it feels different.
Okay. How about you guys? Do you guys have any exotic pets?
Please talk about your killer dogs.
So my family is a family of dog lovers. So we have Cocker Spaniels inside the house. We have 4 of them in our 2 houses. And we've got dogs to guard the house, like Malojiraje has his Dogo Argentinos. We used to have these Pashtuni hounds. But then we were not able to source them because we had a family friend who gave us these hounds. Then we were not able to get more again. So then we got them from the Mudhor Dog Research Institute. We got Mudhor hounds. And now we've kept 4 Mudhor hounds in the outside to take care of the grounds. Because like he said, I mean, you need like dogs to take care of the grounds at night. Otherwise it can be risky.
Has any undesirable incident ever occurred with them? Like they have attacked the Zomato guy or something?
No. But one of my Cocker Spaniels once barked at a photographer who had come, and he came like very close with his camera to try and take pictures of our family. And he just started barking, and he's a very small guy. I mean,
Yeah.
Cocker Spaniels are not
They don't
big.
grow very tall.
They don't grow very tall, but I don't think he understood that the small dogs actually have a big bark.
Yeah,
And
yes.
he got really scared. And there were 2 steps behind him. So the poor guy started taking steps behind, and then he fell slightly. But that's about it. I mean, then we explained to him that they don't bite, they just bark. It's okay. You don't need to get so worried.
And how about you? Do you have any exotic
We
pets?
are not very dog loving people, to be honest. We have cats. I have a cat in Pune who is, I think she's a real princess because she's treated like that at home. But yeah, not those many dogs.
But all pets are technically like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So they are. Yeah.
So she's living.
So okay, so I think in this conversation we have seen a lot of your side of the stuff, but in the next conversation I would love to hear a little bit more of the fun stuff behind your lives. So I hope to see you all there.